Good morning, everybody. This is Naveen Samuel, and I am with Penny Reed. She is a nationally renowned dental practice management coach, speaker, and author. She works with dentists who want to grow their practices, become more profitable, and have a better quality of life. And as a result of her work, her clients are more focused, have more income, more confidence, and have happier teams to support them. So I want to welcome to the podcast Penny Reed. Thank you for being here, Penny.
Oh, thank you for having me, Dr. Samuel.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I never set out to be in dentistry. As a matter of fact, I'd like to tell not only my clients or seminar participants that I'm quite the chicken. I've just now graduated to where I do not have to have nitrous to get my teeth cleaned. So, but actually, I went to work for my dentist. That was how I got into dentistry. Prior to that, I had been have a management degree, and I went to work for a little company called Walmart that you might have heard of, in one of their distribution centers as an IT manager. And apparently they picked me for IT because I had taken a programming class. Of course, they didn't bother to check to see how well I did in that class, but I had a great team to support me. And then when I moved back to Memphis, I'm from the Memphis area, still here, then I bumped into my dentist at church, and it's just kind of ironic that I wound up there. So it was not anything that I had set out to do initially. But so I was an office manager for him for quite a few years, and then that just sort of led me here.
Oh, okay. That's great. So tell us a little bit about the events that, well, I think you brushed up on it already, but tell us.
Well, it actually, it's kind of an interesting, that was the Reader's Digest version of how I got here, and it's funny, someone had asked me the same story. It actually started, I think, when I was in 7th grade. I got here the longer version is actually a little bit more interesting. I think as a 7th grader, I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. There were not really a lot of women's sports teams, so I was under this impression that I might be on some men's professional, like, basketball team, right? You know, completely delusional, way too much time playing with my big brothers out in the backyard. And I rapidly began to realize that might not happen when I would show up to see who made the teams. And I remember in 7th grade, and really went to the coach to think there must have been a mistake because my name was not on the list. This happened for volleyball and then basketball. And then 8th grade, the same thing for volleyball. 9th grade, the same thing for volleyball. 10th grade, I was approached by my science teacher, and she said, I'm going to be coaching the volleyball team next year. Why don't you try out? I thought, you are funny, right? Because, hey, I've been cut 3 times. You know, I may not be a quick learner, but I do eventually get it. And she said, no. She said, I know that you know, you haven't made the teams, but I've seen how hard you work, and I want you on my team. Well, she happens to be married to the dentist that I went to work for. So it sort of came full circle because when he sat down with me to ask me to come work in his office, I said, I don't know anything. You know, it's like I really don't know anything about running a dental office. And he said, well, you know, I know how hard you work. You know, I know the work ethic that you have, and I want you on my team. So it's really interesting, the journey. But what I really wanted to do when I realized I could not be a professional athlete, right, that there was not a team that would have me, was I wanted to be a coach. And in college, in starting out college, my dad said, which I'm going to make him out to be the villain here, I'm not paying for you to go to college to be a teacher and a coach. And I'm like, well, isn't that ironic? Because you can't be a teacher without a degree in teaching. So in my experience in Dr. Imes' office, once I came on board to work with him, you know, one of the things that I didn't like about Walmart when I was in management with them was all of the procedures and systems and protocols we had.
Okay.
Yet one of the things that we didn't have and we really needed, which I became aware of when I came to work for this dentist, was there were no books on the business side, management procedures and protocols. And
Sure.
Great guy, awesome clinical skills, some systems in place, but the practice had begun to grow, but his income was not growing, and that made me sad, right? I mean, these were some people that that really meant a lot to me. So we began to seek out help, from other sources, and went to a practice management seminar, which I never knew this existed. Like what we're talking about today, I had no idea that there were people that worked with dental offices, dental team members to help them get better. And so after about 6 months of doing that, I told him, I said, you know what, I want to do that. I don't know when, but I want to do that, and I promise that I will replace myself before I do that. So about a year and a half later, I remember we had a conversation. It was time for me to go. And he said, it's killing me to let you go, but I know that you can help other people the same way that you've helped me. So it's really been a journey about coaching for me. And when I saw what was possible in his office, it just stirred in me. I thought there are so many people out there that are bound to be in the same position. So that's the longer story about how I got here.
Well, that's a great story. I mean, it's amazing that you could recognize your passion for coaching and teaching early in life. I think a lot of people, they don't discover that until much later, and or they figure out their passions much later in life, and you figured it out earlier. And
it took me a long time, though, because I thought I'd lost it. So it's I also have a heart for that, too, because, as I'm sure a lot of folks set out as a career, as a dentist or a hygienist or whatever it is, and you forget why you began to do it in the first place, because of the stress, and, life tends to knock you down every now and then, and you have to figure out how to get back up and reinvent yourself.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. Now, you mentioned earlier about you worked for a specific dentist, and it came time for you to go, and then he recognized that you had the ability to help other people. So can you give me an example or give our listeners a very specific example of how you were able to help somebody?
Sure, I'm happy to. So one of the things that when I begin to work with a dentist, and whether it's whether we plan to have more than one coaching engagement, or we know we're going to work together for a period of time, 90 days, 12 months, I spend time with them just like I recommend that my clients do with their patients, and finding out what's important to them, what they want to accomplish. And this particular dentist said, she'd been in practice. We'll just call her Dr. X. She'd been in practice for about 20 years. And still enjoyed the dentistry, but she was seeing patients 5 days a week. She wanted a little bit of time, right, during the week to be able to go do doctor's appointment, just have a better quality of life. And she also felt like they were not near as productive as they needed to be, and wasn't really sure what to do next. And so what I do usually is I'll start out with like a practice checkup, that comprehensive evaluation. And we looked at, knowing what it was that she wanted. I looked at all the systems, but specifically to try to help her get where it was that she wanted to go. And there were tons of opportunities with her scheduling. They were not maximizing her provider time. They'd not really ever really talked about it. They'd talk about don't put this procedure next to this. Had not ever really had a conversation with the team about goals, bonus. Had not done a lot of things to focus on new patient attraction, and also upping their case presentation skills. But she has a highly motivated team, which was great, because that's really where the foundation of it starts, is do you have a culture of people that will do what it is that you ask them to do? So that part was already pretty good. So when we sat down and had the conversation about goals, and again, it's kind of, if you think about coaching or a team, it's like, all right, what are the stats now? Where do we need to be, in order for us to be as high achieving of a team as we can be? And so we set those goals and began to create what was, I get a little cracked up at the whole perfect day scheduling, because in order for it to truly be perfect, everybody would have to show up on time, and every procedure would have to go exactly the way that we planned it to, and that doesn't happen. So I call it like the profile of the ideal day. And they really began to look at what it would take for them to do every day without killing themselves to hit their goals. And, so by doing that, changing some of our phone skills with how we answered the phone, and also something as simple as getting very consistent with using the intraoral camera, and also with the conversations we had with the patients about what's important to them. So, this is like a myriad of things, like a puzzle, her perfect puzzle that fit together. And by the end of 12 months, and actually I'm still working, with her, we're kind of in our next phase, not only had her practice grown, and this is one of these where I'm like, this just is like, like you win the championship. Her net income increased 50%, and she reduced a day a week. So she went from 20 days a month to 16 days a month. Her net increased 50%. Her husband is an accountant, so he's digging this. And then the team began to get a bonus every month. They hadn't gotten raises in a couple of years, so they're bonusing, sometimes $200 a month, sometimes $400, pretty consistently. But now they are like, okay, what, it's instead of her being the one that was always saying, okay, we need to do this, they're excited. It's like, okay, when I come in and do a training day, when are you coming back? They see that because of the things that they did, that they made this happen. And it's just super exciting for me, because they also did that without adding any other team members. Since then, they've had to add another team member just because they've grown. So that's more than one thing, I know. But usually, as you know, all these systems are interconnected. You increase new patient flow, and then you wind up trying to figure out how to handle that on the schedule. So it all of the things work together. But that gets me super excited. And so now we're reshaping the game plan to see, okay, we've grown, so we've created some great problems on how to handle that capacity, and now how do we take that to the next level?
Great, yeah. And you know what I think you hit on a lot of different points there. There's one of the things that I drew from that is the employees had a sense of ownership in the practice, and then they were no longer just clock in and clock out employees, and just once they clock out, it's like they don't think about that practice ever again until the next morning when they're back at work again. But I'm sure because they felt like a sense of responsibility to the practice too, and part of the success of the practice, now their minds start thinking, and now they're, they come in ready to work and produce for the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of that is because they know that she cares about them. So the culture part of the practice already, and I'm not going to say that they don't have issues they need to work through, because so much of getting things done is relational. And it's like the whole culture piece, them being on board, they want to be successful. They want her to be successful. And, that's huge. You can have the best systems in the world, and if you don't have a team of people on board that want that with you, you're swimming upstream, and unless you're a salmon, that's probably not a good thing.
I don't think it's good for the salmon either. It's good for all the
it probably isn't.
All right. Well, let's talk about your book. And I know you have a book out right now, and can you give us a title and what the book contains?
Absolutely. The title is called Growing Your Dental Business, and part of the reason that we use business and not practice is it's primarily focusing on the business side and the systems. I began the process, the book came out in May of 2015. I began the process of thinking in that direction probably around 2008, after the economy kind of took a dip, and I saw a lot of dentists more stressed and struggling than what they had been. And so the real focus and essence of the book is there may be things that we can't change, yet there are things within our practice that we can change. And if we'll focus on those things, there's a recipe in that book on, no matter where you are, how you can grow your practice by 25%. And it's not by spending a lot of money, right? I mean, if you will do what's in the book, it's sort of a field guide for the areas of practice growth. And those 5 keys are increasing new patients, always being sure that we're increasing active patients. That's not really something that I had monitored that much prior to about 10 years ago, and it's something that I have my teams monitor now on a monthly basis. Helps you sort of determine the whole PPO thing, if you're not participating or if you need to, are we growing or shrinking, and, the efficiency, so the systems, primarily scheduling, but also are we as individuals on the team increasing our skill sets so that we get better. Like, for example, the computer software, most teams learn enough to survive, and then they never go beyond that. Being sure the hygiene department is growing in its membership, and then also case acceptance. And depending on where the numbers are when you first take a look, like whether you do your own or you have somebody like me come in and do that practice checkup and opportunity evaluation, it tells you where to start. Because every practice doesn't need to press the same button first. It really depends on where they are. So, and the book is available actually on my website, but also if you're a Kindle person, or iBooks, you can also get it from those places as well.
Great. Yeah. So you can get this on Amazon. What about your website? Can you get it from your website?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because for the people that are listening to your podcast, of course, my website's the favorite place for you to get it from, because then it tells me, who you are, right? And
sure.
You can have an opportunity, if you like, to sign up. I'll go ahead and mention a free resource, if that's okay. I have
sure.
a monthly, if you want to call it a newsletter, it's actually beginning to evolve into a video blog. It's called The Huddle, right? Because if you're a sports team, you got to have a huddle before the game. Every now and then you have to have a mid-course huddle. So that is available if you go to Penny Reed, PENNYREED.com, and you'll see over on the right-hand side the subscription. You can join the huddle. And then for your listeners, and the easiest way for me to track this would be if they do go to the website, pennyreed.com, and click the book if they want to purchase the book. If you purchase it from the website, it will be easier for me to see that you've gotten it. It's a $20 investment in the book. And for your listeners, if they will then send me an email, and in the email subject line just put book 30 minutes, they will get a 30-minute complimentary introductory coaching session. I will not be selling anything to them on that session, no additional fee for the session, and just be happy to help them with, learn about them and what kind of specific issue that they may have. So if they do buy the book from another resource, if they want to screenshot that receipt, they can send that also, if they'd prefer to have it in a digital format. But I would need that email to penny@pennyreed.com, book 30 minutes in the subject line. Let me know your name and when might be a good time for me to call and the best number, and my team will get that scheduled.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for doing that.
Sure.
Yeah. So you talked earlier about an example of an office where you were able to help out, but you also mentioned that the team members were relatively motivated to be there and to be, and can you give us an example of when you were able to help out an office where the team members were not motivated to be there, or maybe the dentist was ready to quit too?
Yeah. Occasionally that happens. I mean, I think we all go through different levels of burnout. Usually when team members aren't motivated, it's not because they're not the right fit. I mean, but I do have to address, selection. When you look at managing and motivating team members, it really starts with selection. So in rare circumstances, and I will tell my clients this, I'm not there to help you weed out who doesn't need to be there. I'm there to work with your team to get everybody on board as much as possible. And so those that aren't on board, usually it will begin to surface and they will sort themselves out. Now, the doctor may have to be the final one to say, this is what I've asked for. Are you willing to do this? And, Penny, are you willing to do this? And if I'm the team member and I'm like, yes, but I don't, it's hard or I don't know how. So really what we have to focus on is the why. Why is it so important for them to make changes? And then also, the how. Here's how we can do this and what's in it for me. And sometimes the what's in it for me is not a bonus. I mean, let's face it, the most fun clients that I have to work with are the ones that are already achieving and they want to take it to the next level. Sure. But the reality is, it's just like in the dental office, all of your patients don't come to you and say, Dr. Samuel, I'm not happy with how my smile looks. I've been saving my money. I've got $30,000. Can you make me look beautiful? A lot of them come in with a hot tooth. They're upset, they're irritated, they're angry, and you have to work with that. So, sure. Listening to them, often what happens when we come together as a team, and obviously, the dentists or the dentists have to be the leaders in this. There's a lot of stuff that could have been talked about if they felt safe to talk about it. Now I'm there, they feel a little bit safer. I have to kind of coax it out of them. So sometimes there's just this underlying frustration of things and misinterpretations. They think the dentist doesn't care. They think he or she is only in it for themselves, or maybe they've perceived that someone's been made out to be the favorite. So we come together and figure out, what is it that we're here to do? And usually, however they phrase it, it comes down to it's all about the patient. But then next is we've got to take care of each other as a team. And it's amazing to watch. I'm going to say I don't think it's any magic that I have. I think it's just the setting the right stage for them to be able to communicate with each other, get a common vision, common goals. They will begin to rally together and play together. And then it becomes more obvious if you have people that repeatedly, let's say, we decide we're playing a basketball game. Well, we've got somebody over here that just wants to be a juggler. Sure. It will become obvious if they're not playing basketball and they're off juggling, and they may not be able to be there. And I think that's one of the hardest things for dentists. A lot of them will pride themselves on, I've had the same team for 30 years. Well, some of that's great. Some of it's liable to not be very good. A little bit of turnover, I learned this a long time ago from one of my mentors, is a healthy thing because it lets the team know, what, our common vision and our team is more important than catering to an individual that gets us off course.
Sure, yeah. That's a very good point. Well, I'm talking here with Penny Reed, and she is the author. She's a dental consultant and the author of Growing Your Dental Business. Do you like to be called a dental consultant or a dental coach? What do you prefer?
If I could invent a word, and I've thought about consultative coach, but boy, that is such a mouthful. I used to say, I don't consult, I only coach. Well, that's almost like saying I don't see emergency patients, I only do comprehensive dentistry. Well, how many times has someone come to you and has said, I don't want to talk about anything other than this tooth?
Sure, yeah.
That's all I need is this tooth. Sure. And if you said, well, but look at this big dark spot over here, you're going to lose them. So, I would have to say that I'm both. I mean, my passion is in the ongoing continuous improvement, yet I think probably in years past, one of the mistakes that I made was people would come to me with a thorn in their paw, and I don't know that I, paid as much attention to let me help you with this one issue, which sometimes is just a step or two. It may be a coaching session or two by phone. And then later, what I found when I've done that, it might be 12 months later, 2 years later, the next time they have an issue or when they feel like they're ready to take things to the next level, they would, be more likely to choose me. So sure. I actually think a coach does both. I mean, my coach is in the summertime. did camps, right, or lessons. So you could come and spend a day and get better at setting or serving or what. You didn't have to join the team to be able to come to the clinic. So I think most coaches in their heart are probably, looking at that ongoing improvement, looking at the whole big picture, the big game plan, and then being there. You bring somebody in, you're on a high, right? I mean, it's like a 30-day or a 90-day high, but business gravity sets in, and then usually there's some sort of a breakdown, whether it's somebody's not, playing their role at the level we thought, or, we aren't being consistent with something. So the beauty of the coaching relationship is you prepare them for that, and you're there, to help boost them back up. If it's just a one-shot thing and that's what all the plan is, the tendency can be after that peak, like it's like you go to a seminar. Oh, my gosh, we're so excited. We're going to change our practice. We're going to change the world. And then a few no-shows, bad traffic, somebody on the team moves away that you thought would be working with you forever, and then poof, it's gone. So they both can work. And to answer your question, I think I'm both. And if you can think of some awesome, sassy word for consultant and coach, that would be fabulous. I'd love it.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there is one out there, but I don't know if one exists in the English language.
It may not. Hey, I haven't thought about that. I'll have to go explore some other languges and come up with a new word. Well,
I know. In some of the languages, their interpretation of their words is more of a condition or situation rather than just a simple one-word meaning for it. Well, so before we finish our podcast, can you tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you?
Sure. One way is at my email, which is pretty simple. It's Penny, like the coin, Penny, at pennyreed.com. That's probably one of the simplest ways. Also, there's a contact form on the website. If they're already on the website and they want to do that, they can hit that. Or my toll-free number is 888-877-5648. My team is usually monitoring the phones more so than I am, but I would love to hear from your listeners and see what challenges they have that they would like to solve. And again, the investment of the book, I think it gives them, it's sort of like a roadmap on how to grow a practice, something that I wished I had 22, 24 years ago when I went to work for the dentist that I went to work for. It's like, okay, we need to grow this thing. I don't even know where to start other than just, I was taught growing up, and at Walmart, you're nice to people, right? But Walmart had already figured out their model for growth. So, but if they buy the book, more than happy to give them the complimentary introductory 30-minute telephone coaching session.
Well, Penny, I want to thank you so much for being here so early in the morning, and I know you have a busy day ahead of you, but thank you for agreeing to be on the program today. And, in the future, if you have a new book or a new program coming out, I would love to do another interview with you and, bring some more listeners in. That would be great.
Absolutely, and thank you, Dr. Samuel. It's been an honor to be with you today.
Okay, thank you very much. And that will end this podcast, and thank you for being here, listeners, and we will see each other, or we will talk to each other at the next podcast.